Hello, and welcome back to the channel. So, today we're talking keyboards. Corsair recently dropped a bold new entry into the keyboard space. That's the Vanguard 9.6 and the Vanguard Pro 9.6. And I thought these were worth a mention because they're not just mechanical keyboards. By the looks of them, they actually pack a full-colour LCD, native Elgato Stream Deck integration, and high-speed features with a compact layout that aims to merge gaming, streaming, and productivity into one device, which is why it piqued my interest. So in this review, I'll walk you through everything you need to know, including the good, the rough edges, and whether it's worth it. So let's take a look. Corsair positions the Vanguard series as their new generation of high-end keyboards. The base Vanguard 96 features MLX mechanical switches, while the Vanguard Pro 9.6 steps up to MGX Hall effect magnetic switches. Both are going to share a 96% layout, meaning you get the numpad, the arrow keys, and the function row, but in a much more compact footprint. So some of the key features are its A320 x 170 full-colour LCD display built into the keyboard itself. What also piqued my interest was you get native Elgato Stream Deck and virtual Stream Deck integration, which basically means you can map stream controls, scenes, and macros directly to the keyboard's G keys. On top of that, you're getting up to 8000 Hz hyperpolling for ultra-fast input, and you've got hot swap switch support. That one was a difficult one to say. A multi-layer sound dampening to reduce the noise a little. So on top of that, you've also got customization via a web-based utility in Corsair's Web Hub, rather than using heavy local software, which is actually a bit of a bonus. So those are the headline specs. Now let's take a look at the design and the feel of the keyboards themselves. Right out of the box, the Vanguard has a very clean and modern aesthetic. Corsair is using a mix of aluminium top plate, can't say that, and sturdy material, so that when you press firmly, there's very minimal flex. Some reviewers have actually reported it to be very solid and durable. The layout itself is very interesting because despite being compact, Corsair managed to include the numpad, F keys, arrow keys, plus room for the rotary dial and the all-important LCD. The 6 programmable G keys sit along the left side, and the rotary dial is multifunctional. So out the box, it handles things like volume, but obviously you can remap it via the software for scrolling, zooming, lighting, media, and much more. The cable routing is actually very thoughtfully done. It's on the underside, giving you options for direction. And Corsair themselves have also included multiple layers of dampening foam to reduce ping and shell noise that you can sometimes get. On the downside, the keyboard is wired only, there's no wireless options at the moment, and because of the Hall effect or / magnetic switch hardware and the LCD itself, it is actually a little bit heavier than some of the ultralight boards. So to recap features and dive into them a little bit more, obviously, you've got that LCD plus Stream Deck integration. So this is where the Vanguard really tries to differentiate itself. The built-in LCD screen can show animations, system stats, images, or even custom graphics, which is why it piqued my interest. And in test, it's actually responsible enough that animations and overlays feel fluid, which is a big bonus. So it's more than just a gimmick. The Stream Deck integration is actually quite a killer feature, and Corsair has built in native Elgato Virtual Stream Deck support on top of that, and then you can map your Stream Deck functions, so scene switches, macros, media controls, directly to those G keys. There is also a dedicated Stream Deck launch key that opens the on-screen overlay, which is really quite handy, meaning that you're not just limited to the 6 physical keys, but you can have multiple pages of virtual ones on your screen when you press that. So that's quite cool. For streamers, what that means is fewer tools cluttering your desk, which is why it excited me, and the keyboard itself becomes a control hub. One trade-off though is that because these features are integrated at the hardware firmware level, software maturity and stability are rather critical. So if the integration has bugs or lag, I can see it impacting usability. Some reviews have mentioned this actually, that there are some quirks. So in terms of performance, typing and latency, let's talk about how it feels to type and actually game on these keyboards. So on the Pro model itself, the MGX Hall effect switches provide magnetic actuation, I'm going to struggle to say that word, allowing for adjustable actuation points and even dual actuation. So what this actually means is that, for example, a lighter press does X, a deeper press does Y. And a lot of reviewers have actually praised its snappy responsiveness. I believe this is probably because it's aided by that 8000 Hz hyperpolling, which is far higher than typical gaming keyboards. And because Corsair also includes that 4 layers of dampening foam, the sound is actually much more refined, so there's less ping, there's less hollowness when compared to some mechanical keyboards. So that's a positive. And actually, in benchmarks and gaming use, it performs really well. So what that looks like is very low latency and consistent keystrokes, and no obvious shortcomings in fast-paced FPS actions, basically. In daily typing, it's very, very solid. The key feel is smooth, its stabilizers are well tuned, and it doesn't feel overly loud or janky. However, because this is all wired, in my opinion, you do lose the flexibility of wireless connections. And although the weight is kind of non-trivial, for ultra portable setups, it's going to be a little bit clunky. Some users have mentioned as well that there's a very slight learning curve when pairing with advanced features, like that dual actuation or mapping, and it can become a little bit cumbersome. So that is something to bear in mind, but if you're technically minded, you should be okay. Let's talk a little now about the software and customization. So, Corsair handles customization, as I mentioned, via its web hub, which is basically a browser-based interface for RGB remapping for things like profiles, macro creation, and Stream Deck settings. And many have actually found that the web hub is lighter and simpler than the traditional iCUE software itself. I myself have had problems with iCUE in the past before, so this is quite welcome. And that's especially for users who dislike bloated clients. So within that web hub, you can create per game profiles, you can remap the G keys or the dial itself, and you can adjust the LCD screen content and control lighting layers, basically. Because it also has that Stream Deck integration and it's native, your configured profiles can persist across multiple setups and be instantly loaded for each game or scene. But there is one little note. Since the web software is web-based, your connectivity and latency to the hub may actually depend on your browser environment. So that's one to be made kind of aware of. Also, users need to watch out for firmware updates early because of those bugs that I was mentioning earlier that could cause some problems with usability. So let's take a look at some of the pros and cons. So for pros, you've got that all-in-one device, plus the LCD, and plus that Stream Deck integration, which reduces all the gear on your desk, basically. It's got very good build quality and feel, and obviously you've got that high-performance 8000 Hz polling with snappy switches. It's very flexible, so you've got customization and profile, per profile mapping, and its compact yet functional layout is also a bonus. So some of the cons and trade-offs are, as I mentioned, no wireless option. It is a little heavier and bulkier than the ultralight keyboards. And actually that feature richness does impose a slight learning curve. And we've got to mention cost. So it's still premium pricing. And another thing to mention is the software firmware maturity will matter for long-term stability. So who is the Vanguard really for? Well, if you're a streamer or a content creator who already uses or wants Stream Deck and all of its functionality, then this keyboard can simplify all of that. And your desk at the same time. This is actually why I decided to cover this keyboard or keyboards, because it actually interested me. I'm not actually sponsored by Corsair at all. It was just one that I wanted to cover. But what this integration means is there's fewer peripherals, and the LCD gives you visual feedback at a glance, which is nice. Also, it's for gamers who love top-tier specs and want cutting-edge switch tech, and who will appreciate the speed, polling, and responsiveness. But on the other hand, if you prioritize portability, wireless use, or ultralight setups, probably this keyboard might not be your best match. Or it might feel like overkill for casual users. But overall, I think Corsair has pulled off something ambitious here. The Vanguard series doesn't just add gimmicks. In my opinion, many of its features feel thoughtfully integrated, and if the software and the firmware keep pace, this could become, I'm going to say it, one of the definitive streamer/gamer all-in-one keyboards that we've seen for a little while, or seen in this generation. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks ever so much again for hanging out with me, and that wraps up my review of the Corsair Vanguard 9.6 and the Pro 9.6 keyboards. If you found this at all helpful, please hit that like button and also subscribe for more hardware deep dives. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys and talking about nerdy topics. And also, let me know in the comments, would you use this keyboard as your Stream Deck? I have to admit, I am really tempted. So that's it. Thanks very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.